you have never explored yourself, you need to. Because if you don't know how to please yourself, you're not going to know how to tell anybody else how to please you. So really just start t- figuring out yourself. Where you like to be touched, how you like to be touched, the intensity of the touch. Do you like having your nipples, squeezed and pulled, or do you just like the light, tender feather touches? How hard do you want it? And just keep going from there, and don't stop.
Welcome to the Open Bedroom Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Kalo. Welcome to conversations about open relationships, online dating, and creating relationship dynamics that truly align for you. Welcome back to the Open Bedroom Podcast. Today I have my friend Angelique Simmons on, and we're going to talk about something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about finding your sexuality and becoming empowered in your sexuality later in life. I know for a lot of you, you're probably like Angelique and I, where we had, several decades of trying to be the perfect housewife or trying to be the perfect woman and completely ignoring our own needs and stepping into this kind of midlife going, I fucking deserve some pleasure. I deserve to investigate my body and find what makes me tick. And so that's what our conversation is today. Angelique, do you want to introduce yourself and we'll just kind of jump into this topic?
Yeah, sure. So, as she said, my name's Angelique, and I mean, I'm a mother of three grown young young kids. I would say I have animals, and I am an avid reader. So, that's kind of how I stumbled upon some of the things that I am interested in. So,
Okay, I want to jump in and say how we met. So I don't know if you guys know what a munch is, but it's BDSM people in the wild, like vanilla versions of people that do BDSM shit. And there's at least one or two in our area every month. And I have a friend who we actually dated a while ago, and she brought Angelique and she sat next to me, and Angelique sat across from me. And I was like, who is this woman? Like, I've never seen anyone like her. She was like dressed super kind of trad wife. You were talking about trad wife that night. So super cute trad wife vibes. And she was like talking about her sexuality. And then we realized that her and I both know someone within my smut book club. And so then we had smut book vibes going back and forth. So I love when you meet someone that you can connect on so many different levels, all because you decided to show up to some vanilla event, and here we are.
exactly. I love books. Like I edit. I'm an aspiring author, so hopefully I'll have something being published next June. So yeah, it was really exciting to meet you. I just felt like I connected with you because I feel like we jumped into this pool at the same time, not at the same time, but at the same point of our life. It was kind of nice because there's a lot more younger people who've probably been doing this a lot longer. And so it's kind of nice to have somebody who understands, like, oh my gosh, like, been living a life of limiting myself, uh, of who I am and what I want, out of life and sexually. So it was nice.
And this seems like the perfect place for you to just tell us your story.
Okay. So like you said, I grew up in in a pretty troubled household. And so I kind of escaped into books. But then as I got older, um, into my teen years, um, I found a love for like affection and sex. Um, I guess among my peers, I was late to actually having sex. I was about 16. Um, and then, he and I actually were together 5 years. My eldest child, he and I had together. But it was a tumultuous, teenage relationship, just, how it is when you're a teen. And I loved him very much. But in my head, I was like, I love him, but I want to be with other people. At that time, at 15 years old, it's hard to correlate that that feeling because you're told one man, one woman your whole life, right? Like you're supposed to only be with one person. And as our relationship kind of went on, I knew that he was out seeing other girls and I was seeing other guys, but we kind of kept it under the surface because that wasn't acceptable. Um, and when my friends would tell me, "Oh, he's with so and so tonight, let's go," basically pull up on him, and I'm like, "No, no, I don't really care. Like how can you not care?" And I could never explain that feeling of not really caring. Like it actually excited me to think that he was out with other women and then he would come because we lived together. My mom let him live with me. And we lived together, so he would come home and you know, so it was never a problem for me that any guy that I dated um saw other women. I think where it became a problem was I didn't know how to regulate the jealousy because there was no open communication. But I think that's where it is. There was no open communication. So there was a jealousy, like, is he going to love her more? Like, is she prettier? All that just kind of comes into play. And then I met my ex-husband. And he knew kind of like I was very open about being sexual. Um, I was out having fun. I was 20, 22, 23 years old. Um, and he love bombed me. And that kind of began a very rough 20 years.
Let's define love bomb because
Mhm.
also I realized just a few minutes ago I was talking to a friend and he didn't know what trad wife was. So I think like there's all these
Ye-
different
Yeah,
colloquialisms. I don't know what how
yeah,
you say it, but like
yeah.
I'm sure people are like, what is a love bomb? So maybe give us some examples of what that means.
Sure. So, well, right out the gate, a week into us even just dating, he told me he loved me. And I was like, at first I was like, oh, okay. So he told me he loved me. Like I literally a week after we started dating. I actually left the job I was at, which was a good thing. I went to a better job just so we could date because we both agreed we weren't going to date if we worked together. And then just after that, it was just like all of this, like quick and fast, like relationship. Like I can't explain it. If you've never married or dated or been with a narcissistic person, it's a lot and it's overwhelming. And but you're like, oh my God, this person just loves me so much. Love bombing is basically when a narcissist does everything in their power to show that they love you very much and that they're like going to be the only person who's ever going to love you the way that they love you. Gifts, constantly telling you they love you, just all these weird things that in in some women's and even men's minds, they're like, oh, this person really, really, really loves me. They do want to spend the rest of their life with me. Like it's just this weird, quick, fast, hard love. And literally what love bombing, like they're just dropping love bombs on you constantly, constantly. And we were married about less than 11 months later. Now, that's not unusual for some people who know, right? Like, that's not a bad thing or even an unusual thing. But when you go to get married and you're planning your wedding and you're not allowed to basically pick anything for your wedding colors, like that, I was not allowed to really have control of the wedding, um, except for my dress. And um, it just really like I married him not because I was in love with him. I married him because I had to get away from my mom, who was also controlling. But anyway, we stayed married about 18 years. Each year got worse and worse. I was a shell of myself by the time we divorced. I didn't know what I wanted from my body because I had gained so much weight from being unhappy, and I didn't know what I wanted for my life. He had really broke me down to a point where I believed that I was as dumb as he made me seem. Um, but then my saving thing was I got diagnosed as a diabetic. And it was kind of like right before we divorced. And I was very mad at myself for allowing myself to become a diabetic. That's A, scary, and B, very unhealthy. And my doctor was like, hey, we can do one of two things. We can either A, just keep medicating you, or we can change you. And so I hit it hard and I lost over 150 pounds. So I used to be a lot bigger. And as I was losing weight, he was seeing that I was coming out of the fog of what he had put me under. Um, but um, I had finally gotten free of him. He moved out and I started dating. I guess you could say I didn't really date. I was just, out having sex with everybody that I could because I wasn't enjoying sex. I was basically fulfilling a marital obligation. It was my kids, offering myself to him, and nothing for me. And so I was like, this is all about me now. And yeah, so it's been a long road to get here. So
Gosh, it sounds like it. And I imagine that a lot of people, that a lot of women, especially that are listening, have a very similar experience. I know I did. I had two marriages within 2 decades, a decade each of same sex positions, right boob, left
yeah,
boob. Then I go for it. It's about 15 to 20 minutes tops, and then I'm done. And then I turn on ESPN and that's it. Yeah. So I
it
had a
was
similar experience
painful.
to you. Yeah, close to 40 where I was like, I just want to do it doggy style. Like that feels real dirty, you know?
Yes, like it was literally either missionary or doggy. And it and he would say, "Are you finished? Like, why is it taking you so long? Like,
Oh,
why can you hurry up? Like, this is taking forever." So I literally perfected the art with him
faking
of
it.
faking it.
Yeah.
And like I can't even believe, like, how do you not know when someone's faking it?
I think
So
you don't care, right? You're so
yeah,
selfish that you want
yeah,
to get off yourself and you pretend to give a shit that she's had
yeah,
some sort of pleasure that you're like,
mhm,
oh, thank God I can turn ESPN on now.
yeah, yeah.
I can go
It
get on
was
with the rest of my life.
right. It was literally like, okay, we had sex. I was required to get out of bed, put my clothes back on, like clean myself up and put my clothes back on. And that, like, we didn't even cuddle afterwards. It was like no touching afterwards.
Same.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
ex-husband would literally, I was always on top. That was how we would end
Yes.
things. And then I would get myself off because I knew how to do that. And then
Mhm.
he would literally move me off of him and put me next to him and then turn ESPN on. I am not fucking kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, how you
Wow.
think
That's a,
Scott has ever moved me off of him? Not even one time. So
I would
this is
hope
where
not.
we get to the juicy part where you get to tell us all about what finding sexual fulfillment and
Yes.
enjoyment and curiosity later in life can look like for all the people listening who are still getting physically taken off their person and
Right.
ESPN turned on when sex is done. You can have more.
Right. I I had no idea what it was like to actually be fulfilled sexually
Tell me about
until
that first experience because I know mine is
oh
vivid in my mind. Like for
yes.
tell us what it's like when you're like, holy fuck, I've been fucking like a 16-year-old for 20 or 30 years. What is this goodness?
Right. Okay. So I met him on one of the dating apps. I don't even remember which one. And he came over one night and he was like, I'm going to take care of you. And I'm like, whatever. Okay. Let's just start off by the fact that I have been living a small dick energy life my whole life. Let's just say that because we were touching and kissing and I was literally almost already there with him just you know, playing with me. And I reach over and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that isn't like, that's not gonna, I can't, that's scary. Like it was big. And, And I was like, well, I'm let's just give this a go. And we actually he I still have a hard time talking about like sex openly because it was but um we finally got to the good part, and it took a minute for it to fit. He's like, God damn, you're so fucking tight. And I'm like, and
Well, you're
for
still
me,
big.
I was like, here was my response. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, are you sure? Like, because I had been told that having sex with me was like throwing a hot dog down the hallway. Keep that in your mind. Yes.
No.
Yes, girl. Yes, girl. And so it was like, it wasn't even like 15, 20. It was like 30 or 45 minutes. And he, I came within like probably 10 minutes of just sex. And I was like, this has never happened in my goddamn life. Like, what the hell? I was like, this is good. And I was like, all right, now I know what real sex is. And I was out just I was chasing that high, right? So I was like, you want to have sex? Come on, let's do this, right? But just that first time was empowering because he was like, what do you want? How do you want it? You know?
Did you even know
And
what to say? Were you like, I don't fucking know?
no, because I'm like, fucking kidding me? Like, what do I want? I was like, I was like, I want, and I had never really talked dirty in my life. So I was like, I just want to have sex. And he's like, okay,
Oh.
right. And so after that, I actually saw him for a few months. He and I just were really having a lot of fun having sex together. Um, he still follows me on Snapchat, by the way. And every once in a while, he'll try to reach out. And then we just kind of broke off. It was we both knew it was just sex. And then I met another guy. Um, and he's actually on Fet. Um, and I started thinking about all the things that I wanted to explore, that I've always wanted to explore. And it was literally, you know, basically the swinger lifestyle. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have somebody, but I also wanted to have other people, and I wanted to watch and I wanted to be watched. And so he's like, oh my God, I have this site for you. I want you to get on it and I want you to check it out. And so the first time I logged in a Fed, I was like, this different. I had never watched porn. I had never watched porn. So that was like the equivalent of the first time watching porn. I was like,
Okay,
oh my
let's
God.
sidestep really quick and let people know what FET is. And I occasionally
Okay.
talk about it, but if you're listening and you're
Mhm,
like, I don't understand what we're saying, it's called FET Life. It's all
mhm.
one word, and it's basically like a Facebook for kinksters. So if you imagine a feed full of penises and vaginas and BDSM acts and anything you could possibly
Mhm.
imagine that's like debauchery. That's
Yeah.
what this is. So you can imagine how jarring Angelique was if she had never even watched porn and then gets on Facebook for kinksters. Okay, throwing it back to you.
Right. So I get on there and I'm like, oh my God, look at these. Look at it. And that's where finally acknowledged that I was into women too. Like, not just to look at, but I wanted to be with women and men. And I had known that inherently in the back of my head, but I was also grew up in a very religious household where you were going to hell if you thought things like that. So anyway, I was very excited. I knew I wanted a DS relationship. That's something I still want.
Okay,
Um,
explain what that means for people that don't know.
oh, sorry. So a dominant sub. So, he's a dominant, I'm a submissive, and it's not what people portray it to be a lot. It's definitely a lot more. There's definitely a deeper level to it. It's a lot of trust on both parts, a lot of power exchange, and it's a beautiful thing if it's done right. Um, so I was like I said, I was very new. I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. I didn't have anyone to guide me. So I allowed myself to be domed a couple times by men who should not even be allowed to wear that title. But in the last 3 years, I have figured that out. And I have the power. So
Okay,
that's been nice.
let's pin right here and I'll come right back to it. But I want to take one step back for the
Hmm.
people that are listening, because the title of this is like, I found my sexuality later in life,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of people that are listening are like, whoa, that's a lot. Hold on. I'm gathering all
Hmm.
this information, and how do I make this make sense for me? So one of the things that you said is you were scrolling through FET. So again,
Hmm.
imagine it's Facebook or Instagram, because there's lots of videos and pictures
Hmm.
of various body parts, you know,
People in
shaved
the middle of sexual act.
in the middle of sex acts, shaved vaginas, non-shaved vaginas, big dicks, little dicks, all different colors of the rainbow. There might
Hmm.
be an orgy. There's all kinds
Hmm.
of things to look at. And I think most of us got an education somehow about sex from porn or from like a Playboy magazine from the 1990s that your dad had stashed under his bed, or maybe you accidentally walked in on someone. The beauty of Fet Life, and Scott has lots of negative things to say. I mean, we're both on Fet and we're on there probably every day. But I like to use it as an educational piece like you did. And I
Hmm.
love that you said I was scrolling and I was really open and curious. And I realized like, I'm really into women. Like, I like
Hmm.
this. You're not going to see this raw, authentic sexuality that you are in porn. Porn is staged and
Yeah.
it's cut, and it's like, that's not
Yeah.
real. Like, this
Hmm.
is real. And I love that you mentioned Fet Life, because I did something similar when I was like, what am I into? What's out there? If I want to taste
Hmm.
the rainbow in the cafeteria, like, where's the
Right.
cafeteria? That is your cafeteria. And it's
Hmm.
all broken down into little categories. So, like Angelique said, if you're into, I might be into having a dom, I might be into being a submissive. What if I'm a femdom and I want to dom
Yeah.
men or other women?
Yeah.
Like
Or
all these
swings. Or
categories.
yeah, there's
Exactly.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I've heard several people say similar situations to you, similar experiences. A lot of times I think women go in going, I want not a daddy figure, but like I want a
Hmm.
masculine presence in my life.
Yes.
So let's
Hmm.
try Dom sub. And then they have an experience like you did, where every guy, not every guy, because there's also
Yeah.
fem doms and less
Hmm.
fem subs and all kinds of stuff out there. But
Hmm.
a
Oh yeah.
lot of men are like, I'm a dom. And I'm sure you can educate us, Angelique,
Hmm.
on various types of DOMs, various styles of DS, and then how to, if that's your thing and that's what you're looking for, how to avoid the 3 years of turmoil that you did, where you're like, I had some bad experiences, and here's people
Hmm.
who think they are, but they're not. And then maybe at the end, I'll throw in some experiences that I have that give you green flags of like, here's somebody that you want to work with. Okay.
Yeah.
Unpinning and sending it back to you.
Okay. So, um, finding a home is not easy, like you said. And I agree with Scott. There's a lot of ridiculousness on FET, by the way. Like, I have to leave sometimes where I'm just like, just had enough of this. But there's some good. I have definitely had some education on there, and I've met some amazing people. Finding a dom is not easy in a sea of men who think that domineering is being a dominant in a relationship. Two very vastly different things. Um, so, like I said, I had met two men prior to. Those were very short lived. I don't even think we met in person, but I really just was like, nope, and walked away. And then I met somebody on there. When he approached me through the chat or message, it was very um, like very nice. It wasn't um, respectful. It was very respectful. There was no like, you're gonna get on your knees for me. It was very respectful. We had a good conversation. We ended up seeing each other the same night. Um, that turned into a year-long lesson learned. Let's just say that. Um, he was domineering, not a dominant. He wanted somebody that was going to do what he said. And I thought I was in love with him because of other things. And And then we brought a third in. So we started a poly relationship. For those of you who have watched your podcast, know probably already know what that is. And I was very excited because I actually loved both of them very much. And once we invite he collared me if in a DS relationship, being collared, it could be neck or the wrist, or both, is basically the equivalent of putting a ring on your fiance's finger, but it has a deeper meaning. And yeah, so he collared me, and then a couple nights later, we invited her to be our third. Once that happened, we had set rules that night, and sadly, they did not follow them. But then turned it around to make it seem like I was the one who was crazy and destroying the relationship. So that ended, and they have ridden off into the sunset. So, which is fine because that was a lesson learned that not everything is as it appears. It's helped me open my eyes to um, the truth and that I wasn't crazy, that I deserved to be treated better than I was by both of them.
And I love this because this is really a conversation about you exploring your
Mhm.
sexuality
Yeah.
outside of your 20-year relationship. And this
Mhm.
was just one of the doors that you opened.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think I'm going to do a separate whole podcast on how to choose a Dom. And so I'll keep my conversation and my thoughts on that separate so that we have our
Yeah.
own conversation, like our own unique
Mhm.
podcast episode on it. But I
Yeah.
know this wasn't like the only door you opened. And I'm sure
Mhm.
as a young
No.
person, as you were
Mhm.
reading these smut books and
Mhm.
reading erotica, that
Yes.
you were like, ooh, I
Yeah.
want to try some other stuff. So I
Yeah.
know for a fact that the trad wife thing is something that you've been interested in. And maybe you
Yes.
explain what that is
Yes.
and like how you would dress, how you would
Mhm.
show up. And also, I want to hear
Mhm.
other experiences that you've been able to have since you've just given
Yeah.
yourself permission to kind of taste the
Yeah.
rainbow and try everything.
Yeah. So, okay. So the trad wife thing is usually not uh, accepted in most category. It's not something I would do every day.
I want you to
So,
explain what it means and what it is.
so it's hard because it's become such a big thing on like TikTok and stuff.
But so many men and women don't even know what it is. Like I just had a
So
conversation an hour ago and he was like, "What? This exists?
yeah,
I need one
yeah.
of those."
So a trad wife for me is actually a role play, but for some women it is a way of life where they actually dress and act like a woman from the traditional 50s style husband wife dynamic where she dresses in the heel skirts and pearls and is the doting wife. um that is not something I want in my everyday life because I have found that I'm way too much of a dominant personality in my everyday life to be a trad wife consistently. But I do enjoy putting on the clothes and dressing as you saw me that one day is kind of the trad wife kind of uh I guess I could call role play. And I don't mind, serving my man dinner and then getting on my knees and sucking his dick after that because in my cute outfit and my pearls because that's exciting. I have explored, um, gosh, what have I explored
Can I
lately?
just stop with this image because it's such good girl energy, right? It's
Yes,
like,
yes.
I'm going to be
Mhm.
such a good girl for you. I'm going to dress the way you like. I'm going to wear
Yep.
those pearls. I'm going to keep them
Mhm.
on while we undress
Why
for the
you
rest of
give
the
me
night.
a pearl necklace?
Exactly. I'm gonna make you your
Mhm.
favorite dish. Like
Mhm.
this is not a controlling or a
Mm-mm.
like my conversation earlier was about women at C-suite level and how
Mhm.
difficult it is for those women to then find men that can
Yes.
have some masculine dominant energy because
Mhm.
you're like there's just not very many people left. You're at the
Mm-mm. They're not.
001% of the population, right?
Yeah.
But I love that you can come home even if you are, wearing the pants during the day at your
Hmm.
job, you can come home and switch into a submissive role if you want.
Hmm.
Put those
Hmm.
trad wife outfits on, make your meatloaf, give your man a, whatever Bloody Mary or a drink when he gets home,
Hmm.
and then like take that off when you don't want to be that anymore. That is
Yeah.
super hot and fun. And I like the good girl. Like I can imagine him being like,
Yep.
"You are such a good wife. You're such a good girl."
Yeah. Talk about making me, you know, orgasm. Call me a good girl while I'm
Right.
down on my knees for you, and there's going to be a puddle left underneath. So,
Yeah.
I definitely would like to explore that some more. Um, BDSM. I fucking love having my ass beat. Like I can switch it up. Like I can be the sweet good girl, but I also can be the girl who's like tie me up to the St. Andrew's Cross
You're like, I've
and
been
get
so bad today. I
I've been
really need a
so bad.
punishment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not inherently bratty, but I can definitely do it when I want to get what I want to get. And if I want my ass beat, I'm gonna brat just enough to push you over the edge to get what I want. So I've definitely explored that side.
I
Um,
imagine finding a partner or partners that can handle all these various sides of you and be able to pick up on the cues like, oh,
yeah,
I came home and she was wearing the pearls and the fishnets and she handed me a martini. Okay, I know she wants good
I
girl
know it's
tonight.
one
Or
good girl
like,
tonight. Yeah.
she's being a fucking brat. Oh, that's because she wants me to punish her later. Has that been difficult for you to find a
Yes.
partner that can pick up on those cues?
Yeah, because you know, this isn't a dig at men, but men aren't always inherently observant to your personality. And also, it does definitely take the right man or woman to see that, okay, like you just said, like, oh, so we're being a brat today. Well, when I get home, I need you face down on the bed and ready for your punishment or kneeling in whatever position, the submissive position that he said. Um, so yeah, it has been hard.
Do you find women, because you mentioned that you've been with women, do you find that women pick up on this a little bit easier? And if
Yeah,
so, have they risen to the occasion of this kind of play, or did they kind of fall back into being I know I do. I always fall back into sub energy when I play with Steph, and I want to
right.
be the one that's like, hey, I see you're being a brat, but instead it's her going, oh, you're bratting for me. That's cute.
That's cute. So funny you should ask that question. When it comes to a woman, I prefer to be the dominant. I prefer for her to be the brat. I prefer for her to give me those cues. Um, I have not had the opportunity to be with many women. So because of that prior experience, I kind of shut myself off from it because, you know, but definitely something I want to explore more of.
Right, I was going to say, isn't this interesting as you start to explore your sexuality as a woman, as you, Angelique, that you have discovered when I play with women, I like to dom and I'm really observant. And so I need a play partner who's willing to put these different hats on with me,
Mhm.
right? Or to
Yeah.
act a certain way that I like to dom her. But I know when I'm with a man that I need to level up because I need
Mhm.
him to then be able to do the same thing for me and be able to
Exactly.
play with
Mhm.
all the different sides of me.
Mhm. Yes, that is definitely going to be a challenge for me to find. Um, so I'm definitely looking forward to finding those two people that can kind of meet me in the middle, and I think that will be amazing once that clicks into place. I also enjoy being watched. I really love performing, I guess you could say,
You're an
whatever the
exhibitionist.
act exactly. And people ask, what is that? Well, I mean, behind closed doors, if it's just me and another person, or we're having, a swinger thing where it's me and him and another couple. I like them to watch me, and I love to watch them. Like that is just something I get off on, like watching and being watched. I can also do, public exhibitionism. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to get naked, in the middle of the park and have sex, but I like the idea of fooling around somewhere public, just enough that you people could probably tell, but they can't see what's going on. That gives me a really big thrill, so much excitement, and yeah. So yeah, you want to play quiet library in the West restaurant? All right, let's do this. Let's see how far both of us can get before one of us breaks and makes a noise. So yeah.
And these are all so fun because I think every time you peel another layer of the onion, you learn more about yourself.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
you can tell your partner, okay, I did this thing today and it really turned me on. And I've realized I think I want to watch other people, or I think I
Hmm.
want other people to watch us. Okay, well, what kind of a space does that need? Like, where would we go to make this
Yeah.
happen? I know for Scott and I, we're both exhibitionists and voyeurs, and our girlfriends are too. And so when
Nice.
we've gone to sex clubs, like we've gone to Colette's in Dallas, and we've
Okay.
discovered that we really like to watch other people. And we've also
Mhm.
discovered that we like the orgy room with all the windows open so that you
Mhm.
can watch us. And we like to
Yeah.
perform. And it's this safe space where we don't have to have random people come in if we don't want to. But if we
Yeah.
did want to, we could just open the
Mhm.
door and invite them
Yes.
in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of my favorite book series is by Sarah Kate,
Okay.
and they run a club, and it's just really like I haven't been to a club, something that is on my bucket list. I definitely want to go to one. I want to experience one. I just haven't found anybody that would like to do that. But yeah, it's just exciting to think that you're on one side of the glass and there could be two to, however many people are there watching. And it's so exciting,
It really is.
just,
And I find FET is also a great platform for being an exhibitionist or being a voyeur
yes,
because you can
yes.
watch other people's videos or pictures, but then you can also put one up of yourself if you feel so empowered. And then people will comment and like and follow you and want to see more of that. And
Mhm.
it's a safe
Yeah,
space. Yeah.
it is. I have a couple videos, one of me getting head and one of just me pleasuring myself. Don't have any videos of, actual sex, but that will happen, trust me. And it's actually a confidence boost
It is.
because I was very, what do you call it? Just unsure of myself giving head, because I didn't really ever do it because I was told that good girls don't do things like that growing up, and then being married, I could never get him off. Like I was never doing it right. And so it took me a while to actually do it, but like
I love that you whispered
it's
that.
actually empowering because you've got this man,
Your
literally, he's
mouth.
at your mercy.
I know.
You got him in your mouth, and it's up to you and to make him feel good.
Yeah.
But it's also up to him to do what he needs to do to help you get to a point where you want to make him feel good. And when you finish them, um, that is like an ego boost because you're like, because especially when you get guys that are like, no one's ever made me come by sucking my dick. Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. And I, I mean, I will brag. There's been three guys that have said that to me, and all of them lost. So
Nice. I feel like
yeah,
that belongs on like a your dating or FET profile where you're like
right.
certifications, trophies, and
Hmm.
acknowledgments. Like I've done this thing.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I even feel it like when I do a hand job with Scott, when I start to
Hmm.
play with him to get him hard, I'm like, God, I love your cock in my hand. And when it
Right.
starts
Oh
to
my.
get big and hard, it makes me so
Mhm.
wet. Yeah. And all
Because
of this is just through exploration, right? Like
mhm,
if you had
yeah.
decided that you needed to be married forever to this
Mhm,
person who would basically force you to have sex with him
mhm,
and didn't care about your own pleasure and you had to fake your orgasms, like you would never have gotten this deep into peeling back the onion and discovering all
mhm.
these parts of yourself.
No. And not just sexually, just being, you know, regaining my smart, showing myself that I am intelligent because I can do the things that I was told I couldn't do. And now, it's 4 years into being separated and 2 years after divorce, and I am strong. Like, don't tell me I can't do something because it's going to happen. It may take me a bit because I still doubt myself, but no matter what it is, whether it be, relationship wise, sex wise, or just my career, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you can sit back and you can watch it happen. And, you know, you can apologize to me later. So, but yeah, just discovering your sexuality, is important. It plays a big, huge part in who you are. Because if you know what you want from your own body, you can have better expectations for yourself. Um, you can set the stage for whatever it is you want in life because once you realize you control your sexuality as a woman, um, you can control every other aspect of your life. So,
Amen.
and that's important to me.
I think also it helps our partners, right? Like the first
Yeah.
partner that you had who was like, "Hey babe, what do you want? How can I please you?" And you were like, I just want to do the sex." Like I can't imagine that you would have that response today because you're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, this is how I like it." And you've learned how to
Hmm.
dirty talk. So you're like, "This is
Yeah.
how you're going to give it to me." And they
Yep.
want that. Like I want
Hmm.
that. Even with my own partners, now I'm still like, is this good? Do you like it? Do you want me to do anything different? And then you start to gain, confidence that, okay, I can dirty talk a little and they're not going to laugh at me. And then you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at
Yeah.
this dirty talk thing. Like,
Yeah. And asking for feedback from your
mhm.
partner, whoever that is important too, because you won't grow sexually if you don't know that maybe what you're doing isn't something they prefer. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be an acrobat for every partner you're with, but knowing your partner's needs, both yours and his knowing yours, you're gonna end up in outer space with orgasms because you both realize that okay, this is what I have to do to, make this happen for him, or I have to do to make this happen for her. So,
Oh my gosh, I want to add something.
hmm.
I have found that actively choosing, we call them sexploration nights, like choosing
Ooh.
sexploration as a couple
Hmm.
or a quad
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
triad or whatever you are, and whatever
Hmm.
configuration you found yourself to be in, not just giving feedback like, yeah, that feels good a little to the left, but going, hey, what do we want to try next? What do you want to try
Yeah.
next? And he's like, oh,
Right.
I've always really wondered about pegging.
Hmm.
Like, is that
Right.
something you'd be interested in? And you're like, fuck yeah, let's go find a
Hmm.
strap on and let's go buy that
Right.
together and make that an event. And then we'll find some new lube and then we'll watch a
Hmm.
video. And then like
Hmm.
adding
Yeah.
to your toolbox of sexual exploration something new, or joining a munch, or getting on
Hmm.
Fet, or like we've hired people from munches, three of them to, in fact,
Hmm.
three different people to come into our home and teach us something that we just had no idea. Like
Nice.
wax play was such a cool thing to
Oh,
learn.
yeah.
And it's an art, knife play. We haven't done that, but Steph and I went
Yeah.
to one of the local dungeons and they did this like Stations of the
Hmm.
Cross, and watching some knife play stuff, I was like, like I don't know that I want you to cut me, but like I like the way he's using it as a scare tactic and some mind fuckery, or it's a cold
Hmm.
implement and he's using hot cold play, or
Yeah.
there's just
Hmm.
so many, like Angelique will tell you,
Right.
there's so many things in the treasure chest. You
Hmm.
just get curious. And if you consistently put sexploration on your calendar, whether it's quarterly, a few times a year, even monthly, then
Hmm.
you're going to be so surprised at all the
Oh, yeah.
things that you find that you like and that you don't like. And it's okay if you don't like something.
Exactly. And it's important to be open about that as well. If you don't like it, but your partner does, maybe there's a compromise where you can meet in the middle, that there's something else that kind of satiates that need, but you enjoy as well. Because if one of you is not enjoying it, it's not going to be pleasurable for either of you. So,
I imagine this being like you as a voyeur or you as an exhibitionist. Let's take that. And you're like, oh, I really want to like fuck outside under the stars in the backyard.
yes.
And he's like, babe, we live in a subdivision. Like there's kids all around
Mhm.
here. I don't think we can do that. But what if we like cracked the window open and we left the shades drawn at night and I had a little light on, like that would be his
Yeah.
comfort level, you know? And then you're like,
Right.
okay, let's try it. And then the next time you're like, what if
Right.
we moved closer to outside?
How about let's take a drive to a beautiful secluded place, and even if it's not, where people can see, at least that's testing the boundary of being outside and having sex outside your
Yes.
bedroom or outside your home, or outside the confines of any building. You're outside, and that kind of gives the person who's hesitant about being an exhibitionist an ability to see if they really that's something they want to take further from that area. So
Oh my gosh, I
yeah.
love this. Okay, let's end with this. I'm going to have you
Yeah.
give the challenge. Okay.
Oh.
So I'm going to frame this as the person that's listening has
Mhm.
either been married for forever and has a boring sex life and is listening to this podcast to try to spice things up, or they've started dabbling in open relationships and they're like, I really want to explore my sexuality more.
Mhm.
Angelique, what challenge would you give a newbie to kind of get their feet wet about this?
Well, first I would definitely research, just kind of, if you don't want to get on Fet, there's plenty of other things, places that you can research. I mean, even go on a sex toy site and look at like a dildo and be like, ooh, I want to try that because it does this, and bring that into your bedroom. Don't be shy. Um, ask your partner, is that something you'd be willing to try? Because if you don't ask, you don't know, and maybe they're feeling the same way. So start out with just a toy, even if it's a vibrator between you and your partner, and you guys explore that. Start small, because after you after you start small and you've got that vibrator, the dildo, and you're like, oh, yeah, I like that. Let's try it. Because once you open that door, you're going to keep going and going and going. And I don't think there's ever a point where you're be like, I've tried everything, because you haven't. But yes, start small with yourself. Honestly, it all starts with you. Um, you know, play with yourself. Explore. If you have never explored yourself, you need to. Because if you don't know how to please yourself, you're not going to know how to tell anybody else how to please you. So really just start t figuring out yourself, where you like to be touched, how you like to be touched, the intensity of the touch. Do you like having your nipples, squeezed and pulled, or do you just like the like tender feather touches? How hard do you want it? And just keep going from there, and don't stop. So
I
that's what I
love
that's what
that.
I did. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I love that this was like just a normal conversation between two women who have started their sexploration kind of later in life. And I hope that if you're listening, that you feel empowered by this and that you take Angelique's advice and go get on a sex toy website and go buy something new. Go get in front of a mirror and explore your body, or get underneath your covers in the dark and play
Yep.
and
Yep.
just get started.
Yep. Yeah. And the last thing I want to add is, it doesn't matter what size you are, your body is your body. You have to love it. So,
Love that. All right.
yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. And we'll see you on another episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Open Bedroom Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and give us a like and click subscribe below and stay up to date on all the new episodes that we release. If you have a topic that you'd really like more information on, leave us a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and especially your partners. This is a great way to open up some amazing conversations. We'll see you next week.